Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Trans Youth Google Hangout series. This series is being hosted by Lambda Legal. My name is Ryan Rasdell. I am a legal assistant here at Lambda Legal, and I work specifically on the Transgender Rights Project. What we are hoping that this Google Chat Hangout series can accomplish is to be a space where trans youth can talk about issues and concerns that they have here in the United States. And this specific hangout is going to focus on bathroom access and issues that have been affecting trans people and trans youth around the country currently. So what I'll do is I will have each participant introduce themselves, and then I'll give a little bit of a summary about what's been happening, and then I'll start asking questions of our panelists here. So why don't we start with Aiden, and then perhaps we can go to Juliet, then Travis, and then Ellie. So Aiden, if you could start us off.
Hi, I'm Aiden. I'm from Greenville, Michigan, and I am 18 years old. My pronouns are he, him, his, or they, them, theirs, and I am graduating in about a week, and am a activist, I guess. I'm an activist here in Michigan.
Great, thank you, Aiden. Juliet?
All right. Hi, my name's Juliet Evancho. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I am 18 years old, and my pronouns are female. And I live here with my 5 dogs and the rest of my family.
Thank you. Travis?
Hi, I'm Travis Sawyer. Pronouns are he, him, or they, them. 17, live in NYC, but I'm originally from California.
Thanks, Travis. And Ellie?
Hi, I'm Ellie. I live in Missouri. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm 18 and I graduate tomorrow. And I'm working on becoming a makeup artist.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give a little bit of background about what's been happening. Forgive me, I have some notes that I have written down here, but I'll try to summarize them as best as I can. But forgive me for looking down. So the theme of this specific hangout is going to be around the harmful anti-trans bills that have been taking off around the country this past legislative season. As it stands, there have been over 50 bills specifically targeting transgender people. Many of these bills have been attempting to restrict trans people's access to restrooms and to locker rooms that correspond with their gender identity. Many of these bills have been have failed. Either, a lot of advocates have been on the ground, or, there have been a lot of education of politicians about why these bills are harmful. But however, there have been 2 states in particular that have been in the news, those 2 states being North Carolina and Mississippi. And I'll break down the difference between those 2 states. So North Carolina's bill, HB 2, specifically targets transgender people. It prohibits local governments within the state of enacting their own non-discrimination laws that would protect LGBT people. But it also requires that schools and public buildings segregate facilities according to what people have on their birth certificates and not according to gender identity. So currently, Lambda Legal, along with the ACLU of North Carolina, are suing the state of North Carolina over this bill. And in addition to that, the U.S. Department of Education, Department of Justice, have also gone and sued North Carolina over this bill. And in a silly, you could say, way of dealing with this, North Carolina is now also suing the government over this bill. They're countersuing. So there's a lot happening in North Carolina right now. There's activists on the ground. People are talking about this. It's all over the news. It's getting a lot of attention. So I'll switch now to Mississippi. Mississippi's bill, HB 1523, is a religious freedom bill. So what that bill says is that it creates sweeping exemptions, pretty much saying that if people and businesses can discriminate against transgender people, LGBT people, based on their religiously held or moral beliefs. So what that basically means is that someone can say, according to my religious beliefs, I don't believe transgender people exist. I believe that the gender that was assigned to you at birth can't be changed. Um, and so with all of that, if that wasn't enough, in the last couple of days, 11 states have also decided to step forward and sue the government, sue the Obama administration over the recently released guidance that schools be respectful of transgender youth, that they allow them to access locker rooms, sports teams, and such in accordance with their gender identity. So this is a topic nationally that's affecting trans people, particularly transgender youth, and so this is why I wanted to have this discussion with all of you about, how this affects us, how this affects our community, and what our thoughts are about it. So I would like to open up the floor and ask the first question to everyone, which is, given all that I've just said about all these bills and what's been happening around the country, I'm wondering how all of this makes you feel as a transgender person, as a young transgender person, perhaps in school or just out of school, dealing with seeing this in the news. How does it make you feel? So perhaps we can start with Ellie, and then I'll make sure to call on certain people and make sure everyone gets a chance to speak. So.
I think it makes me feel just as who I am, very targeted and very, I feel like my life is being kind of invaded by people who believe that I am not, people who don't believe in transgender being an actual thing, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then the hate and discrimination towards it, it makes me feel very uneasy and kind of scared a little bit. But on the other hand, if we keep fighting, we can, get through this and stuff. But it just makes me feel very uncomfortable to see all these bills being passed and all that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ellie. Juliet, did you want to add anything about how it makes you feel? And we'll come back to you, Travis.
Yeah, sure. For me, having gone to meetings at my own school where people are all fighting against transgenders being able to use the bathrooms they identify with, and knowing that this happens all over the country, it's very concerning, and it's very scary, because I don't want all of us to have to feel like we do have to hide and conform to what everyone else wants us to be.
No, that's a really good point. Thank you for that. Eden, did you want to comment about how this makes you feel, hearing all that information? And Travis will definitely come back to you.
I know that in Michigan, I think it was just a couple of days ago, another bill was introduced. Mm-hmm. It was specifically for schools where trans people could not use the bathroom of their gender identity, and so that's something that in Michigan we've been fighting against for several months, and it's just really getting closer and closer to home. And since I'm graduating soon, the fight here in public schools may not affect me as much as soon as I graduate, but as a GSA leader who knows a lot of young trans people and just a lot of trans people who are still in school in general, it's really terrifying for me because I'm worried for them. I'm worried especially for young people who may have trouble finding advocates that can stick up for them, or even just friends. And so on the local scale, that worries me a lot. I worry about the younger people, and just on a systematic scale, when trans people are being discriminated against and just not being allowed to participate in public life, and having needing to use the restroom, being controlled by the government, it's a really scary thing, and I feel very nervous about how it's going to pan out as time goes on, because there's just so much contention over it.
Yeah, it's definitely, I'm hearing a theme of fear and being scared. It's definitely an unnerving time to see all of this happening around the country. Travis, is your mic working now? I just wanted to make sure you got a chance to an opportunity to speak about how
Um,
this makes you feel.
I think it's working. Is it working?
Yep, you're good.
Um, yeah. As far as like what's been happening lately, yeah, I've been very nervous and a lot more anxious in public. Like, thankfully, I go to a school that's very accepting, and we're allowed to use whichever bathroom we prefer, and there's really no issue over it. It's never really been an issue. But as I see like more and more things pop up and more people be discriminated against, it's kind of scary because I don't know. It's just like it's such an invasive thing to like determine who can use the bathroom based on how they were designated at birth, and I think that's just a very odd and very I don't even know. Like it's unsettling to think that people actually condone it and that it was actually passed and that people are okay with it. I mean, obviously there's people that aren't. Like me, I'm not okay with it. But the fact that it was passed in multiple states is yeah, it's really unsettling, especially since like I don't know, you see a lot more violence and stuff pop up these days, and it makes me like scared to take the train or walk home sometimes because it's kind of like we're condoning violence or discrimination against trans people.
No, that's a really good point. I think a lot of that's been a discussion in the community is folks saying we're getting more visibility, but with visibility sometimes comes the violence that comes with it. So thank you all for speaking to that and talking about the real, very real feelings of fear and insecurity and anxiety. It's definitely something a lot of folks are feeling right now. So I want to transition into our second question, which is I'm wondering if you're comfortable, if you could each talk about any issues that you've personally had about accessing, whether it's a locker room or a restroom in your personal life at school or wherever. What challenges have you had? And please share what you're comfortable sharing. Perhaps we can start with Juliet.
Yeah. As I said previously, my school is very separated on the issue, and they don't really want to understand. A lot of people don't really want to understand what we're going through. And our school has had many board meetings discussing all of this. And going to these meetings and hearing some of what these parents are saying about us and saying that we are monsters who are there to rape their children. Believe it or not, that's what they're saying. It's honestly just ridiculous because we didn't have a problem with this until the parents started having problems. There have been instances where I've walked into the bathroom and girls start whispering and then they all leave the room, and it's very degrading. It's not something that I think personally I can handle for all the rest of my high school career. I'm a junior, so I only have one more year left, but then I have to start thinking, what about all of those people who are going to come after me, and what are they going to have to go through? And that's why I'm fighting the good fight right now.
Trying to help the next generation of trans youth who are coming up. Thank you for that. Perhaps we can go to Aiden. Do you have any specific experiences you want to share with us?
When it comes to restrooms, when I came out in sophomore year, I didn't expect, because I live in a really rural area, I didn't expect that they would let me use anything besides the female restroom, so I didn't ask to. I asked to use a gender-neutral restroom because I didn't want them to put up walls, I guess, and then not provide any other accommodations to me. I didn't want them to misgender me in class, so I was like, okay, I'll use the nurse's restroom, or like the teacher's restroom. And so That's what I did at my first school, and then when I transferred to the school I'm at now, I did the same thing. So I only have one restroom in this school, which is the nurse's restroom. So it's, if I'm like across the school, I have to walk all the way over, and I'm late to class like a lot. But I know that, well, personally, I didn't run into that issue because I avoided it as much as I could. There have been other trans students at my school who are not allowed to use the restroom of their gender identity, and have been trying to be able to do that for a while, and so they end up being in the same situation that I'm in, except that they were kind of forced into the situation of having to use the nurse's restroom. And that's just school, and that's something that's really concerning because, well, I feel more comfortable in the nurse's restroom just because I don't feel comfortable being around other students when I'm in restrooms. I know that for them, they would feel a lot better if they could use something that was affirming their gender identity. And I want them to be able to have that, and I want them to not have to go through a large amount of trouble just to pee during the middle of the day. It's totally ridiculous because other students, if a student is using a gendered restroom in my school, they have 5 or 6 different access points to restrooms all over the school, and I have one. And so it's just a huge issue that I don't think should even be an issue. And then just in general, in like general public spaces, like you have to decide, like you have to kind of really, it makes you dysphoric. You have to be like, am I passing enough today? Do I look cisgender enough today to use this restroom? And like, which one would I be safer in? Is this a safe space for me to be using the restroom that confirms my gender identity? And even if it's a safe space, is there maybe like an orderly or something in here who's going to like try and kick me out? Like it's just this constant running and running and running in your head because there's no protection. There's no legal protection.
You brought up some really great points, Aiden. That was really great. I know a lot of trans youth just end up holding and not going to the bathroom, and it can cause a lot of health problems. But just that, you're right, the constant like thinking about who's going to be there, can I get away with it today? Should I just hold it and not go? And you brought up an excellent point about, there are 5 or 6 options for multiple people, for a lot of, cisgender people, and then sometimes the trans student just only has the nurse's bathroom that they've been given, and it's a struggle. And so this is why this is even about more than just bathrooms. This is about people just having access to school and education, because this impacts your entire life. So thank you for bringing all of that up. Travis, did you want to share? Did you already share already? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I don't.
About your personal experience?
Okay. Well, now I go to school. It's very safe as far as that. But prior to being here, I lived in Washington for like a year and a half. And the school I attended, at first I wasn't entirely sure which bathroom to use. So I originally started in the girls' bathroom. And after a while, I was like, this isn't working for me. So I went into the boys' bathroom, and I felt terrified. So I'd have to like wait outside until all of them had left before I could use the restroom. And then there was a possible chance of someone coming in while I was in the restroom and then wanted. So I started using like a bathroom that had been that wasn't accessible to the other students, so I felt safer there. And I was able to use that for a few months, and then they locked in, said I couldn't use it anymore. And then I went to using the boys' bathroom again, and then they said I couldn't go in there and I had to use the girls' restroom. And then they allowed me to go back to the bathroom that was only accessible to me. And then they started letting other students also use the bathroom. So again, I was kind of out of a bathroom for a while. And thankfully I moved out of the house I was living in then. But yeah, I didn't feel safe whatsoever in the bathrooms. And there was one point where I had been coming out of the one only accessible to me. And another student had said that she would beat the living hell out of me if I used the bathroom again. And yeah, it was very hostile, especially since I just had to do a normal bodily function, you know? Like everyone else, there was nothing malicious about my intent of using the bathroom. I was simply doing what I felt I needed to do. Well, not felt I needed to do, what I literally needed to do. And then I would have gone to class. But I think it's the fact that people overthink things or make issues out of something that really isn't there. That's really dangerous. Like it causes like so much, and there's so much fear already, and now people are like placing that fear in other things, and it's going to cause a lot of issues. It's already caused a lot of issues, and people are passing that on to their children who you go to school with, and they have all these ideas, and it's toxic, in my opinion.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Travis. Brought up the points again about fear and anxiety that trans people are feeling, that people who don't understand who trans people are feeling, and I really appreciate you sharing that story. Ellie, did you want to share
Yeah, I can.
your story?
Okay, so just like Aiden said about using the nurse's restroom, when I came out sophomore year-ish, around there, I didn't really tell them which restroom I was going to use. I just kind of used the women's because I was like, okay, I'm trans. I came out. I identify as a woman, so I'll just use the women's. I did that about 3 or 4 times before they started catching me on their cameras. And then I remember the first time I got like caught in big trouble at my school, I was wearing a pair of like leather boots, like heels and everything. So I didn't feel right going in the men's because I identified as a woman and everything. And I would probably get like beaten up or something, you know. So I went to the women's, and literally like 5 seconds later, one of the assistant principals was like running after me and like escorting me out like crazy. It was so ridiculous. And I was literally there like obviously to pee, right? So that was a huge moment where I realized like this is a problem, you know. But I think a lot of people are making a big issue about these bathroom things out of nothing because we're just there to use the restroom, and we've been doing it for years. It's nothing new. They're just making a big deal out of it. So I think my school kind of progressively worked with me a little bit. So they were like, okay, you can use the nurse's restroom. So I did that for a while, and then I felt really isolated just personally. Like it is nice to have my own restroom to myself, but like if my girlfriends wanted to like go talk in the bathroom or whatever, I couldn't go with them because I'd get in trouble. And you know, we can't like, I'm always isolated, I feel, at my school. So they did let me use the women's restroom for a little bit, but the stupid thing was they had to go in there, make sure nobody else was in there, and then they would let me in. And then they would wait for me the whole time until I got out. So I was pretty much being watched all the time, and it made me feel really isolated and uncomfortable and just like I'm being targeted, which is what it is, you know. But I feel like it's not right.
Thank you for sharing that, Ellie. Thank all of you for sharing your personal stories. I know it's not always easy to talk about these things. I think it's important that the folks watching it, the trans youth who are seeing it, to see what people are going through, and for folks who are not trans to get a better sense of the struggles that trans youth are dealing with in their schools. When you should be in school, trying to get an education, and yet so many of us are worried about, will I be able to use the bathroom today? Should I not drink, water today so I don't have to go to the bathroom because I'm scared of, being targeted? So I just wanted to thank you all for sharing those stories. So I also wanted to ask all of you if you could speak to, your state legislator or a lawmaker or even like a school, administrator who was considering, putting in place policies or, putting in place a law that would ban trans people from accessing restrooms that match gender identity. I'm wondering what you would want them to know. What would you want them to take away? What would you want them to understand about transgender people? What would you want them to understand about this issue in particular? So I'm going to call on Travis first, and then I'll subsequently call on other folks as we go along. Travis?
If I were to pick one, I'd probably ask what their actual motivation is. and if it's really safety concern, or if it's just bigotry. Because at the end of the day, like, I'm the only one that really goes home feeling degraded. It's not like anyone else in the bathroom is gonna go home and be like, I was so terrified. In reality, the only people that are really terrified are trans people, because we're the only ones that are targeted, and the only ones that people like kind of stand by idly and watch it happen. And it's really sad and very scary to think that like people who have this power think that this is okay, that they can just do this and they can enforce their own ideas onto the population, especially when there's like a lot of impressionable youth that don't understand and are going to grow up thinking that this is okay to discriminate against trans people. I just really hope that they think about that, and they think about the fact that like these are actual people who go home to families and pets and children, and there's a life. They have a life, and they're not just objects or some threat that we're guarding ourselves against. In reality, it's just people at the end of the day, and there's no malicious intent. Like, obviously any person is capable of doing bad things, but as far as I know, there's no proven case of a trans person that has specifically gone into a bathroom to attack another person and like use some sort of disguise to be in the bathroom. Like, that's not a thing. It doesn't really exist.
Thanks, Travis. Aiden, would you like to go next? What would you want whether it's a lawmaker or a school administrator, to know about this issue or about trans people?
I think that something that I've seen so much with lawmakers is just they seem to simplify this issue so much. They seem to ignore the history of the transgender rights movement, just the humanity of transgender people, to make it into, oh, it's common sense. You don't put boys in a girl's restroom. Like, they like to act like it's something so simple when it's so much deeper than that, and they take the faces away from the people who are suffering, and they just give them these titles, and they stereotype us, and it's just that curbing the ability for transgender people to participate fully in public life, which is a population full of people that are disproportionately affected by violence and suicide and homelessness, and in general just systematically discriminated against, is really what's happening. You're keeping people from participating as citizens. You're keeping people from participating in life the way that other people are allowed to. The idea that banning trans people from being in restrooms is going to make people stop being trans is heinous, when in reality it's just going to lead to more trans people being incarcerated, more trans people having issues with self-identity, like self-esteem, more trans people being victims of violence, or more trans people just in general not feeling good about being a part of the world. And in schools, it's just going to lead to students who have so much potential being afraid to participate in education fully. It's not what you think it is. It's not what you see in the movies. These are actual people, and so you have to listen to them.
That's fantastic. That's exactly what a lot of our work is, just helping people understand that these laws and these policies, when they're preventing trans people from accessing restrooms in accordance with their gender identity, definitely impacts their ability to live, to work, to go to school. This is bigger than bathrooms. This is, you hit it right on the nail. This is about having full participation in society. So thank you for that. Juliet, did you want to go?
Sure. What I would tell them and want them to know is that we're human beings, and we're not anything other than that. We're here to live our lives, to use the bathroom when need be, and function as people in a normal society. And what I think, another thing that I realize and kind of hits home for me is a lot of transgenders go to school to escape something at home. Maybe their parents don't fully accept them or don't accept them at all and treat them in a horrible manner. And when they come to school, they're trying to get away from that, and now it is now seeping into the school systems, and they're getting treated the same way, and now they don't have anywhere to go.
That's a great point as well. Um, I'm sorry, I think I might have gotten confused. Ellie, did you go yet?
No, not.
Okay, I would go ahead.
I would say something like, we aren't a joke, like we are real people, being trans has taught me a lot about who I am, and that we should be taken seriously. I feel like a lot of people try and look at us like we're some simple idea to make fun of because they don't understand it, which, stems to the men use this restroom, women use that restroom, whatever, the whole black and white idea that people have. So being trans has taught me a lot that there's a spectrum of just different people. Everyone's different. Everyone has their own identity. Everyone identifies as whoever they are. And the fact that we are being targeted on this is so almost childish in a way, that they don't take the time to understand what we're about and who we are, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Thank you all again for that. It was great. Your responses are definitely very important, and I hope that there are administrators and lawmakers who do get to see this, because these are some fantastic points you're all making. So lastly, the last question I'm going to ask all of you is, I'm wondering if you could if there's any advice or support that you'd give to a trans young person who is dealing with these issues at their school. What advice would you want to give them? What would you want them to know? And I think I had a second follow-up question to that, or just from your own personal experiences, like what best practices have you found in combating this issue yourself? So you can answer both or answer either or, either question. Just pretty much like if there's any advice you have for trans youth who are currently in school or dealing with this concern at their school, and what, if any, things have you found helped you, navigate this issue. Perhaps we can start with Juliet.
All right. What I would want them to know is, please understand that you are not alone. You are definitely not alone, and there's countless other people out there going exactly what you're going through. And try seeking them out, maybe on social media or something, just so you have someone to talk to, or even try looking for a group around your area to go and talk to. And then another point that I also wanted to bring up is, all of this that's going on happened when my dad and his era was our age, with homosexuals. And look how far they have come. And look at all the laws now that have given them their free will. And just, we're going to get there. We're going to get there one day.
Thank you for that. It was really uplifting. Travis, would you like to go?
Yeah. I think I would just say that the concept of like self-love and everything is like a very big thing. And yeah, you really can't go anywhere until like you learn to love yourself. Like, I know that's kind of cheesy and like literally everyone says that, but you really, at the end of the day, like you need to love yourself, and it's the only thing that's gonna help you like progress and like grow. Because there was a time when I didn't love myself, and like you could see it in the way that I walked and the way that I talked. Like I had no place in the world, but now that I feel like I love myself, I know like I have a place here, and like my identity is valid, just like everyone else's. And I think that's what people need to know, that they're identity is valid and they are just as much of a person as anyone else, and they have a place here just like everyone else, and that there's someone who loves them and that they should love themselves too, even if they don't think anyone else does.
That's great. Thank you. Aiden, anything you'd want young trans people to know or like?
I think that there's struggles on different levels for trans kids in schools when it comes to this issue, and I think there's the emotional level. There's the fact that being denied access to things that you have the right to takes an emotional toll, and it, especially when you're trans and you spend so much of your time trying to defend to the world the fact that you exist, like it's painful. And I think for that, like what Juliet said, really important finding other people and establishing that you aren't alone, even if it isn't just other people or maybe just seeking art. I know when I was first kind of identifying as transgender, I would listen to a lot of poetry about being trans or like read a lot of poetry about it or stories, and that always helped me even before I had friends that identified as trans. And when you have trouble with yourself, like accepting yourself, if you do know other trans people, if you're friends with other trans people, and I think this is what helped me a lot get through high school, is if you can't bring yourself to fight for yourself, you fight for those other people. Like I know younger trans people, and I definitely wouldn't be as adamant about, no, I'm not going to be treated that way right now. Like you can't, I won't allow you to treat me that way. If it was just me defending myself. But when I think, okay, me fighting this fight now is going to make it so it's easier for them, that makes it easier for me. So I think assessing your safety, saying like, okay, I'm secure in myself, or my parents are okay with me, so I can work for other people and be there for them, helps a lot. But also on a practical level, finding out who advocates are and where they are and establishing them. Because even if it's just knowing, okay, Lambda Legal exists, so go through resource pages on different sites of places that you know are helpful for trans rights, and finding places local to you, even if local, if you live in a rural area, even if local is like a 2-hour drive away, finding those places and finding names, and even if not contacting them, having them there just in case there's an issue. That creates such a safety net, because when it comes to like the fight for trans rights and stuff, it really does seem like everybody knows everybody in a way. So when you know one person, you know 1,000.
That's great, Aiden. Thank you. Yes, we're a little bit of a small community, they say, so kind of know everyone else. Ellie, I wanted to come back to you, and you can end off this question for us if you're ready.
I would tell them to keep fighting with positivity and keep looking forward, because the hate that we're getting from other people who don't understand about trans and they're passing all these bills, it's coming from a negative source. And so I feel like if you just keep looking forward and moving forward and fill your life and yourself with positivity, great things can happen, you know. And when I was in high school, I was really shy and like really depressed about just who I am, and everything felt like falling down, you know. I found that the best thing to do is just stop for a second, rethink, and be like, I'm going to be who I am. If nobody likes it, whatever. Because you have a short life, you know, and you got to just be positive and just keep fighting. Even if it takes like a long time, keep fighting, and we can like get rid of these stupid bills, and it'll be awesome, and we'll have our rights, you know.
Thank you. We have gone through all of our questions, so I just wanted to thank all of you so much for giving your time and energy today. I know it's not always easy to talk about these issues, and it's definitely not always easy to talk about it, with strangers and people you've just met, on a Google Hangout. So I just really quickly, before we end this chat, I wanted to do a quick plug. If you are a young person out there and you would like to participate when doing a Google chat I can't talk today. If you're a young person and you would like to participate in doing a Google chat kind of like this, we have an email. It's hangout@lambdalegal.org, and feel free to email us there if you have an interest in doing a chat like this. I know we also will have a Twitter handle for this event, and it's #TransYouthStories. So when this video comes out, this will be the Twitter handle that's used. But I also just wanted to say again, thank you so much to the panelists and the folks who participated in this chat. We're at a historical moment right now in the trans rights fight, and there's a lot happening. But I think that history is always on the right side, and we'll come out of this, looking back and being like, wow, that was really, really rough, but look where we are now. So I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for sharing your stories, for being a part of this, for opening up, and for sharing this time and space. And so I look forward to the next chat that we have, and I want to say thank you again one last time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think that's it. Bye-bye.